The Legend of Jigong, Chapter 69.
Honestly, the genius of this particular text lies in its relentless, granular specificity.
Granular is a perfect word for it.
Yeah, I mean, the author constructs this fantastical narrative, but anchors it with incredibly dense, historically accurate material culture.
Right, like the world feels incredibly lived in.
Exactly. The swords and the flying leaps, they only matter because they exist in a world where we know exactly how much a cup of watered-down wine costs.
Yes.
And the specific botanical origin of the bamboo used to carve a bed frame, it grounds the fantasy.
So true. We are going to unpack the mechanics of a closed-loop counterfeit scam, the dual currency system of the Qing Dynasty economy, and the brutal logic behind what we might call theatrical justice.
Not to mention the influx of global maritime trade.
Right, all playing out between sunset and sunrise. So let's establish the parameters of the board here.
Let's do it.
Our primary mover tonight is the vigilante Chen Liang. He's operating completely off the grid.
Like a ghost.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And he is currently stalking a thief by the name of Qian Xinsheng. Qian is fresh off a massive heist, carrying a heavy burden of stolen silver.
And he has absolutely no idea that a predator is tracking him through the dark.
None at all. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start by analyzing our target, Qian Xinsheng.
Right, the thief.
So Chen Liang tails him through these winding alleyways until Qian slips into a residential courtyard. And the text gives us a very specific mechanical detail right away.
Oh, the ladder.
Yes. Qian takes down a centipede ladder to access his room.
The centipede ladder is just a brilliant piece of historical criminal technology.
How so? I mean, what makes it different from a regular ladder?
Well, traditional ladders are cumbersome, right? They require two long parallel beams and are really difficult to hide.
True, you can't exactly tuck a massive ladder under your coat.
Exactly. A centipede ladder, however, is a single sturdy pole often made of bamboo,
Okay.
and it has short alternating wooden pegs driven through it, so it resembles the legs of a centipede.
Oh, that's why it's called that. So it's essentially a tactical climbing pole.
That's a great way to put it. It requires significantly more core strength and balance to ascend than a standard ladder.
Which instantly tells us that Qian, despite his obvious flaws, is actually pretty physically adept.
Right. And more importantly, it can be hidden flush against a corner or just laid flat in the dirt. It's practically invisible in the dark.
Wow. So it is the tool of a professional infiltrator.
Absolutely.
So Qian dismantles this device and makes his way into the eastern inner room of the north house within the courtyard.
Which, by the way, is a fascinating architectural detail to include.
Yeah, let's talk about that. In the traditional layout of a Sioan, the classic Chinese courtyard residence, the spatial orientation is strictly governed by hierarchy.
And geomancy, yeah.
Right. The north-facing rooms capture the optimal southern sunlight and are shielded from the harsh northern winds. They are the premium real estate of the compound.
The master suite, basically.
Exactly. They are historically reserved for the patriarch, the head of the household.
And here we have a petty thief, a societal parasite, really, occupying the space meant for an elder.
If it's so intentional.
It really is. It is a subtle environmental usurpation of the social order.
So he steps inside, lights a single sputtering oil lamp, and barricades the door.
He thinks he's safe.
He totally does. Meanwhile, Chen Liang, our vigilante, lands silently on the roof, climbs down, wets a finger to dissolve a tiny hole in the paper window lattice, and peers inside.
The classic peeping through the paper window move.
The ultimate classic. So we get to look over Chen Liang's shoulder, and what we witness is a masterclass in the psychology of sudden wealth.
Oh, this scene is so good.
Qian sits on his kang, the large heated brick bed that serves as the center of domestic life in northern China, and he spills this massive haul of stolen silver onto a small table.
And the text specifically tells us he is, quote, so happy his heart blooms.
I love that phrasing. We are basically watching a man cross an economic threshold in real time.
We really are, because you have to understand, in the Qing Dynasty, the economy functioned on a bimetallic system.
Right, copper and silver.
Exactly. At the bottom, you had copper cash. These were the heavy, low-value coins strung together on cords through the square hole in the center.
The ones you see in all the movies.
Right. Copper was the currency of survival. It bought you a steamed bun, a cup of tea, a night's lodging, and a really cheap inn.
But silver is a whole different ballgame.
Silver was the currency of power. It wasn't minted into uniform coins like the copper.
It was cast into ingots, right?
Yeah, ingots are shoes of varying purities and weights, measured in taels. Silver bought land, silver bought businesses.
Silver bought social mobility.
Absolutely, and we see that exact realization wash over him.
He starts monologuing in the empty room, like a classic villain.
He really does.
He literally divides the silver into physical piles on the table, assigning a future to each one.
He says, this piece is to buy a house. This piece is to buy land.
This piece is to start a business. It's the classic mental accounting of the poverty trap breaking wide open.
Yeah, he isn't just imagining having money. He is actively purchasing a new identity as a respectable landowning citizen.
What's fascinating here is how the text exposes the fragility of that transformation.
Oh, for sure.
He wraps the silver, secures it inside his heavy wooden money cabinet, turns the lock, and in that moment, he is theoretically a wealthy man.
The heist is over. The capital is secured.
A rational actor in his position would blow out the lamp, go to sleep, and leave the city at first light.
Right, get out of Dodge and begin laundering that wealth into legitimate assets.
But Kian is not a rational actor.
Yeah.
He is a creature of deep-seated habit.
Because the very next thing he does completely sabotages his entire grand scheme.
It's so frustrating to read. He reaches into a hidden corner, pulls out a heavy string of copper cash, unties exactly 100 coins, strings them onto a smaller cord.
And decides he needs to go out into the night to buy wine.
It is a stunning display of cognitive dissonance.
It really is. I mean, he has just acquired enough silver to alter his family's lineage, yet his immediate impulse is still governed by the copper economy.
He cannot escape his own smallness.
Exactly.
And this choice triggers a flashback in the narrative that explains exactly why he is so obsessed with this particular errand.
We learn about Kian's history with a local Shanxi wine shop owner named Old Ji.
And the scam Kian used to run on this shop is one of the most intricate, closed-loop counterfeit operations you could possibly pull off at a retail level.
The water for wine gambit.
Let's break down the mechanics of this because it is brilliant in its sheer audacity.
It relies entirely on manipulating the physical environment of the shop and the social constraints of the transaction.
Okay, so Kian would acquire 2 identical ceramic wine pots. One pot he leaves completely empty.
Right.
The other pot he fills to the brim with cold water from his own well.
He tucks the water-filled pot inside his robes, holds the empty pot in his hand, and walks to the wine shop late at night.
The timing is crucial here, right?
Very crucial. Late at night, these shops did not open their main doors. For security reasons, the proprietor would serve customers through a small, square service hatch.
Like a late-night pharmacy window.
Exactly, cut right into the heavy wooden door, and the lighting is practically non-existent.
Maybe a single lantern casting deep shadows.
Yeah.
So Kian approaches the hatch and hands Old Ji the empty pot. He asks for a specific measure of wine.
Old Shi takes the pot, walks over to his large ceramic wine vat, fills the pot, and hands it back through the hatch.
And at this precise moment, Kian changes the dynamic. He takes the wine, but instead of paying, he asks for Old Ji to put it on his tab.
Now, Old Ji knows Kian is a grifter. He absolutely refuses to extend credit.
And Kian acts super offended. He says, fine, if you don't trust me, take your wine back.
But he doesn't hand back the wine.
No, he doesn't. Using the darkness and the narrow angle of the service hatch, Kian executes this flawless sleight of hand.
He slips the pot full of wine into his robes.
Pulls out the identical pot filled with cold water and shoves that through the hatch.
It's so smooth.
And old Jishi, who is just annoyed and wanting to end the interaction, takes what he assumes is his own wine and dumps it straight back into his main vat.
It is a phenomenal exploitation of the vendor's own assumptions.
Really is. Old Jishi is so focused on the financial dispute, the refusal of credit, that he completely ignores the physical reality of the object being handed back to him.
And Kian walks away with a full pot of premium wine, absolutely free.
Leaving poor Old Shi to dilute his own inventory.
But Old Shi isn't stupid. Over time, his paying customers start complaining that his wine tastes watered down.
He investigates, realizes the math of his inventory isn't adding up, and eventually catches Kian in the act with the 2 pots.
Which leads to a massive physical altercation in the street.
Ending with Kian being humiliated and banned from the shop.
So this is the history, which makes Kian's current behavior absolutely baffling.
Right. I mean, this guy is basically running a 19th century version of a retail return scam, but with booze.
Yeah.
But isn't it strangely short-sighted for a guy who just scored a massive silver heist to still be haggling over 100 copper coins for wine?
Well, what's fascinating here is that it was never really about the wine.
It wasn't.
No, it is about ego and the psychological scars of poverty. Kian doesn't just want the physiological effect of the alcohol.
He desperately craves the social validation of the transaction.
Exactly. He needs to stand in front of old Shi, the man who humiliated him, and force old Shi to recognize his new status.
He is engaging in a petty, localized form of conspicuous consumption.
By throwing down 100 copper coins up front, he is demanding respect. He is trying to purchase dignity.
But the irony is, by trying to flex his new wealth in the copper economy, he leaves his silver completely unguarded.
A fatal mistake.
He strolls out of the courtyard, singing to himself, heading toward the wine shop. And the moment the courtyard is empty,
Chen Liang drops from the eaves like a stone.
the predator enters the nest.
Chen Liang doesn't hesitate. He slips the lock on the door, pries open the heavy money cabinet, and retrieves every single ingot of the stolen silver.
But this is where the operation shifts from a simple recovery mission to something far more punishing.
Yeah, this gets dark.
Chen Liang notices the remaining pile of copper cash, 900 coins, sitting on the table. And he takes that too. He leaves absolutely nothing.
He is stripping away not just the ill-gotten gains, but the thief's original capital. It is a total economic reset.
But the economic reset isn't enough for him. Chen Liang needs to leave a psychological scar.
He moves over to the Kang.
Now, you mentioned earlier how central the Kang is to northern Chinese life.
Right. It's built of brick and clay, connected to a flue system, so the hot smoke from the cooking fire runs underneath it, warming the sleeping surface.
It is the sanctuary against the bitter winter.
And Chen Liang takes the cotton quilts that are piled on the bed, pulls out a flint, and literally sets the bedding on fire.
That is wild.
The destruction of the Kang is profoundly symbolic. Qian is just sitting on that bed, visualizing his future empire.
By setting it alight, Chen Liang is actively incinerating Qian's dreams of stability.
Furthermore, he takes the small wooden table and presses it down over the burning quilts.
Wait, he doesn't want the house to burn down.
No, he isn't trying to burn the whole house down. He is smothering the flames to produce a thick, acrid, choking smoke.
He is manufacturing an atmosphere of chaos and ruin.
Exactly.
With the room slowly filling with smoke, Chen Liang steps outside the door, blends into the shadows of the courtyard, and waits.
The ambush is set.
Before long, we hear Qian returning. He's had his wine, he's flexed his ego, he's singing drunken street songs.
He pushes open the main gate, saunters into the courtyard, and reaches for his door.
Instantly, Chen Liang strikes. He grabs Qian from behind, his fingers digging into the pressure points of the neck, and presses the cold steel of a blade against his throat.
He hisses a warning: if you yell, I'll take your life.
The sudden sensory whiplash for Qian is absolute.
He goes from the highest peak of his life, drunk, wealthy, and vindicated, to the absolute terrifying bottom in a fraction of a second.
Chen Liang systematically neutralizes him.
Yeah.
He binds his hands, forces the gag into his mouth, and drags him out of the courtyard.
Dumping him unceremoniously into the dirt of the street alley.
And it is here, standing over the bound and terrified thief, that Chen Liang delivers his sentence.
But he doesn't read him his rights, you know.
No. He doesn't say, I am a martial artist returning stolen goods.
He projects his voice, altering its cadence.
When he declares, I am the night-wandering god. I specialize in observing the good and evil of the human world. You stole people's silver, so you must face retribution.
And with that, Chen Liang simply vanishes into the darkness, using his lightweight martial arts skills to leap over the adjacent wall without making a sound.
Okay, if we connect this to the bigger picture of Chinese folk religion, the choice of the night-wandering god persona is highly calculated.
Oh, incredibly calculated. The Chinese afterlife and its spiritual pantheon operate as a direct mirror of the imperial bureaucracy.
So there are celestial magistrates, divine filing clerks.
And spiritual auditors. The night-wandering god Ye Shen is essentially a supernatural beat cop.
A supernatural beat cop. I love that.
His explicit duty is to patrol the mortal realm during the night watches, recording the secret sins of men to report to the judges of the underworld.
So he is literally the auditor of karma.
Precisely. By claiming this identity, Chen Liang elevates a simple mugging into an act of cosmic judgment.
He isn't just a stronger guy who took the money.
Right. He is the inevitable mechanism of the universe balancing its ledgers.
And the effect on Qian is just devastating. He's lying in the dirt, trussed up like a pig. He looks over toward this courtyard and sees thick, black smoke billowing out of the windows of his room.
The universe hasn't just taken his money, it is actively burning his sanctuary.
Because he's gagged, he can't scream for help. All he can do is violently exhale through his nose.
The text gives us this very pathetic phonetic sound. Hum.
And this rhythmic grunting in the dark sets the stage for brilliant comedic interlude. Coming down the alley are the two local night watchmen, the Gengfu.
The Gengfu were the vital timekeepers and a low-level security apparatus of the pre-industrial Chinese city.
Right, because before mechanical clocks were widely available, the city relied on auditory signals.
These men walked designated beats throughout the 5 night watches, which spanned roughly from dusk until dawn.
We're told one is carrying a hollow wooden clapper and the other is carrying a small brass gong.
They would beat these instruments in specific rhythmic patterns to announce the time to the sleeping populace.
It sounds like a tedious, freezing, and often terrifying job.
Because the streets at night were pitch black, there was no municipal lighting.
The darkness belonged to stray dogs, criminals, and, in the minds of the populace, the restless dead.
Which perfectly explains their reaction when they enter the alley.
One watchman stops, shivering, and whispers, "This alley isn't clean."
Which is a classic historical euphemism, meaning the spiritual energy is tainted, it's haunted.
His partner immediately rebukes him. "Don't scare me. I have a small fuse."
Meaning his courage is incredibly short.
Then, out of the absolute silence of the pitch-black alley, they hear the rhythmic, guttural sound. Humph, humph.
The auditory terror in a low-visibility environment is incredibly potent.
They cannot see the source, so their superstitious minds immediately fill the void with their worst fears.
The text says it sends a bone-deep chill down their spines. They freeze, entirely paralyzed.
Devin's malicious spirit is manifesting in front of them. It takes a monumental effort of will for the watchman with the lantern to finally inch forward and shine the light on the ground.
And when the beam hits the dirt, the terror evaporates into sheer confusion.
The watchman says, "Wait, isn't that Kim Chen-cheng?"
They quickly kneel down, untie the ropes, and pull the gag from his mouth.
They demand to know who did this to him. Was it a rival gang? A debt collector?
And Qian, completely shattered, looks at them with wide, terrified eyes and says, "I met the night-wandering god."
He doesn't complain about being robbed. He doesn't ask them to chase a man.
He genuinely, unequivocally believes he was physically assaulted by a deity.
This raises a critical point about the operational philosophy of the Wuxia hero.
It really does, because a modern reader might ask if Chen Liang has the physical capability to subdue this man, why not drag him by his collar to the local magistrate's yamen?
Right. If you have the evidence, why not just use the police?
Because within the context of the Jianghu, the martial arts underworld, the formal legal system is consistently framed as corrupt, sluggish, and easily manipulated by bribery.
So a petty thief like Keen, operating on the margins, might just bribe a clerk or suffer a few beatings and be back on the street in a week.
Exactly, harboring a grudge and refining his methods. Chen Liang engages in this theatrical justice because psychological trauma is a far more effective deterrent than institutional punishment.
If Keen believes he was beaten by a man, his ego will demand revenge, or at least a better security system next time.
But if Keen believes he was audited and punished by a literal god, that fear becomes an internalized prison.
Chen Liang hasn't just stopped a crime. He has actively rewired the criminal's worldview through sheer manufactured terror.
It is a permanent behavioral correction via trauma, and it works perfectly.
As soon as he is untied, Qian scrambles back into his courtyard, frantically stomps out the smoldering quilts, and tears open his cabinet.
The silver is gone. The copper is gone.
And the narrator drops a heavy, definitive line. This is the thief's retribution.
But the night is far from over.
No, it's not. Chen Liang has successfully repossessed the stolen funds, but now he faces a logistical hurdle. A vigilante holding stolen money is just a thief by another name.
He must return the silver to its rightful owners, the Liu family.
And the method he chooses to accomplish this is, without exaggeration, the most macabre and chilling sequence in the entire text.
It is a jarring atmospheric shift. We pivot sharply from the dark comedy of the terrified night watchman into a sequence that reads like pure Gothic horror.
Chen Liang navigates the rooftops until he locates the Liu family courtyard. The household is dead silent. Everyone is asleep.
He uses the tip of his blade to silently slide the wooden latch of the main door. He slips inside the central room.
Now, the text casually mentions that there is a deceased old woman lying in the room.
We must contextualize this, though. In Qing Dynasty China, the funerary process was deeply elaborate and time-consuming.
Right. They didn't just bury people immediately.
A body would often be washed, dressed in specific longevity garments, and laid out on a board in the main hall or side room for several days.
For mourning, chanting, and ritual preparation before the heavy wooden coffin was permanently sealed.
This period allowed relatives to gather and the spirit to transition, so the body in the room is a standard feature of a household in mourning.
But what Chen Liang does next is anything but standard. He approaches the corpse.
He doesn't leave the heavy bag of silver on the table.
He doesn't hide it in a drawer. He physically leans over the dead woman, grasps her hands, and pries her rigid fingers open.
He is physically manipulating a corpse that is likely in a state of janction or rigor mortis.
He forces the heavy silver ingots into her left hand, and he forces the string of copper cash into her right hand.
He turns the deceased grandmother into a literal physical vault for the returned wealth.
It is horrifying. But his desecration of the space isn't finished.
No, he steps away from the body and turns his attention to the family's altar.
Placed prominently there is a wooden tablet, which the text refers to as a benefactor's memorial tablet.
Chen Liang reaches out, grabs this sacred object, and physically tears it apart, throwing the splintered wood onto the floor.
He slips back out into the courtyard, finds a heavy ceramic washing basin, lifts it high, and violently smashes it against the stone paving.
The explosive sound shatters the silence of the night, instantly waking Lu Wangxi and her husband inside.
They scramble up, terrified, and manage to light a lamp. And imagine the scene they are greeted with.
The shattered remnants of their spiritual subjugation are strewn across the floor.
And their deceased grandmother is lying in the shadows, her hands overflowing with a fortune in silver and copper.
Before they can even scream, Chen Liang's voice booms from the absolute darkness outside.
Resonating with that same divine authority he used on the thief. He bellows, "Listen carefully, owners. Tomorrow you are not allowed to worship the benefactor's tablet anymore."
If you do, a great disaster will befall you. I am leaving.
And with a rustle of fabric, Chen Liang and his partner Lai Ming leap effortlessly onto the roof tiles and vanish into the night.
It's just wild. By utilizing the corpse, he physically bridges the gap between the world of the living and the realm of the dead.
He turns the corpse into an emissary.
Yes. The silver in the dead woman's hands is undeniable proof of a miraculous intervention. The shattered tablet is proof of a wrathful, omnipotent power.
He subjects them to acute trauma so that the command "do not worship this tablet" is seared into their minds as a literal mandate from heaven.
He manufactures a supernatural aura so overwhelming that disobedience becomes psychologically impossible.
It is a terrifying calculus, but in the chaotic environment of the Jiangku, it is fiercely efficient.
It truly is.
He wields fear as a surgical tool. It's a staggering display of dominance. But the relentless pacing of this text does not allow us or our heroes to stop and process the trauma.
No, the moment they land on the adjacent roof, Chen Liang and Lai Ming immediately pivot to their primary objective for the night.
Scouting the sprawling, heavily fortified compound known as Zhaojialu, the Zhao family mansion.
And here, the author executes a magnificent structural and tonal pivot.
We are violently yanked out of the smoke-filled, gritty realities of the lower classes and thrust upward into an environment of suffocating, almost alien opulence.
It is a complete sensory overhaul.
Our heroes employ their Jigong, the lightweight martial arts techniques that allow them to run across the curved, glazed roof tiles as silently as a cat walking on carpet.
They navigate the sprawling architecture until they arrive at the second floor of the Eastern Pavilion.
They find a window, peer through the intricate wooden lattice, and what follows is essentially an archaeological cross-section of global and domestic high society consumption in the Qing Dynasty.
The author basically halts the narrative momentum to catalog the contents of this room with obsessive precision.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The author essentially pauses the action movie to give us an episode of MTV Cribs, Qing Dynasty edition.
That is exactly what it is.
They see a massive bed frame carved entirely from Shangfei bamboo. The bed curtains are made of cascading foreign crepe.
Hanging from the ceiling are ornate baskets overflowing with fresh jasmine and tuberose flowers, perfuming the air.
On a polished table sits a large crystal bowl filled with clear water, housing incredibly rare, pale yellow goldfish of the dragon eye and Vanix tail varieties.
Beside the bowl rests a jade cabbage carving, a towering coral tree,
A chessboard carved from heavy black jade, and a brush holder made from spotted bamboo. Every single item in that room is a thesis statement on wealth.
This raises an important question, though. Why does the author detail all these items?
Right, why stop the plot for an inventory check?
Well, it establishes the astronomical stakes of the location. Let's examine the mechanics of this wealth. The Shangfei bamboo, for instance, is not just expensive wood.
It's steeped in mythology, right?
Yes, referring to the legendary spotted bamboo stained by the tears of ancient concubines mourning an emperor. Owning furniture made of it implies deep cultural literacy and immense purchasing power.
And the foreign crepe, the Yangzhou, that single detail blew my mind.
It is a fascinating historical marker. For centuries, the flow of luxury textiles was strictly outward from China. The world wanted Chinese silk. Having foreign crepe draped over your bed was the equivalent of importing a bespoke, limited edition sports car today. It communicated a wealth that transcended domestic boundaries.
Even the living elements of the room are engineered to display status. The goldfish in the crystal bowl. These aren't just fish pulled from a river.
No, the dragon eye refers to the telescope eye variety, and the phoenix tail refers to long, flowing fins.
Those specific traits are the result of generations of meticulous, labor-intensive selective breeding in artificial environments.
The fish, much like the jade coral tree, serve absolutely no practical function. They cannot be eaten. They cannot perform labor.
Their existence is purely aesthetic. The author is painting a portrait of an environment entirely divorced from the struggle for survival.
The contrast is genuinely staggering when you place it next to the first half of the night.
Qian Shensheng risked his life, fought in the streets, and suffered intense psychological torture just to steal enough silver to maybe buy a small plot of land.
And the jade chessboard and the coral tree on that single table in the Zhao mansion probably equal 10 times the wealth Qian managed to steal in his entire life.
It's just wild to think about.
Yeah.
And the room isn't just wealthy, it operates on a philosophy of pure decadence.
The text specifically highlights a poetic couplet hanging elegantly on the wall.
Women's rainbow lasts 45 days. Drinking wine 100 years is 36,000 cups.
It is meditation on carpe diem, the fleeting nature of time and beauty.
It suggests that since youth and life pass so quickly, the only logical response is the continuous pursuit of pleasure and intoxication.
It sets an incredibly heavy, sensual mood. We have the scent of jasmine, the soft splashing of the dragon-eye goldfish, the moonlight reflecting off the black jade.
The stage is immaculately set, but it's empty.
Our heroes shift their gaze from the window down into the sprawling courtyards below to understand why the pavilion is vacant.
And they see the remnants of a massive, exhausting celebration. The patriarch of the Zhao family has been hosting a birthday banquet all day.
The courtyards are littered with the debris of a feast. Servants are sluggishly cleaning up.
The hired musicians are still holding their stringed instruments, pipas, and dulcimers, clearly exhausted.
This logistical detail is critical. A wealthy compound is usually heavily guarded, but a major social event, like a day-long banquet, drains the energy of the household.
The guards are fatigued, the servants are overworked, the guests are departing. The entire defensive apparatus of the mansion is experiencing a severe hangover.
The fortress is vulnerable.
Which brings us to the second watch of the night, roughly 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. The guests have finally cleared out, and the stage of the Eastern Pavilion is about to be occupied.
The door opens, and 3 young women enter the room, escorted by a retinue of maids carrying glowing paper lanterns.
And if the author was obsessive about the furniture, the literary portraits painted of these women are on another level entirely. It is the grand entrance of the maidens.
The descriptions here are heavily stylized. They utilize a specific vocabulary of historical Chinese literature designed to establish these women as the absolute pinnacle of desirability and refinement.
Which, critically, also marks them as the ultimate targets.
Exactly.
We get a breakdown of each woman as she crosses the threshold. The first is described simply as peerless and charming, wearing a striking blue shirt and casually waving a gold-flecked fan.
The second woman, noted to be about 18 or 19 years old, is described as a fairy descended to earth.
Her hair is piled into an intricate coiled dragon bun. She's wearing enamel bracelets, has a peach blossom face and apricot eyes, and is dressed in a 100-boy shirt.
Let's look at that specific garment. The 100-boy shirt isn't just a fashion choice, is it?
Not at all. It is a garment heavily laden with socioeconomic and demographic aspirations.
Traditional Chinese society was deeply patriarchal, and the continuation of the family lineage through male heirs was paramount for the maintenance of the ancestral cult.
A 100-boy shirt was intricately embroidered with images of numerous male children playing.
By wearing it, she is broadcasting her primary social value, fertility, and the promise of producing a vast lineage for whichever wealthy family she marries into.
She is a walking symbol of future prosperity. But the description of the third woman is where the text heavily leans into the physical realities of the era.
She is the youngest, 16 or 17. The text praises her natural beauty, noting her unoiled hair and her lotus-colored cloak.
But the camera of the narrative pans down, focusing intensely on her feet. The text calls them a golden lotus and describes her walking motion as so delicate and unstable that she sways like a nodding phoenix.
Now, when we read Golden Lotus and Nodding Phoenix, we are confronting the historical reality of foot binding.
Let's unpack the golden lotus and walking like a nodding phoenix. As poetic as that sounds, we're talking about foot binding, right? It feels like the text is romanticizing their physical fragility.
It is a complex historical reality to navigate. From the Song dynasty through the Qing, foot binding was a profound marker of status and refinement among the Han Chinese elite.
The mechanics of the practice, which involved permanently altering the bone structure of the foot from a very young age, resulted in a highly specific swaying gait.
Right, that required the woman to rely heavily on her thigh and pelvic muscles to walk. This was the nodding phoenix movement the text romanticizes.
It's the romanticization of physical restriction.
Exactly. From a socioeconomic standpoint, it was the ultimate display of conspicuous consumption, what economists might call a Vebling good.
If a family bound their daughter's feet, they were publicly demonstrating that they possessed such vast surplus wealth that they did not need the female members of their household to perform physical labor.
Her immobility was the proof of their economic power. The literary tradition adopted this economic reality and draped it in poetry, transforming fragility into the highest aesthetic ideal.
Vulnerability is the operative word. These women are perfectly matched to the room they inhabit. They are treasures.
The jade cabbage, the crystal bowl, the golden lotus feet.
They are beautiful, highly curated objects, sheltered within a fortress of wealth.
And the text emphasizes this sheltered exhaustion. They complain about the toll the banquet took on them.
There were so many guests, one says, we couldn't even walk around properly.
They're so fatigued they don't even undress. They drink a single bowl of tea. The maids drop the heavy foreign crepe curtains around the Shangfei bamboo bed, and the three women fall fast asleep, fully clothed.
The detail of sleeping fully clothed is telling. It speaks to the deep-seated propriety and modesty of their class, but it also hints at an underlying perpetual anxiety.
Even deep within the innermost sanctum of a fortified mansion, there is an instinct to remain guarded.
So let's take a breath and survey the board as we approach the climax. We have unimaginable wealth, 3 highly idealized, sheltered women, fast asleep at the third watch.
A room filled with liquid wealth, illuminated only by moonlight.
The guards in the courtyards below are suffering the after effects of a massive banquet.
And the only people in the world who have any tactical awareness of the situation are Chen Liang and Lei Ming, crouching silently in the shadows of the roof tiles outside the window.
It's the perfect recipe for a thriller. It is the ultimate pressure cooker.
And the author knows exactly how to manipulate the heat. We transition into the third watch.
The third watch, midnight to 2 a.m. The absolute dead of night. The maids have blown out the lanterns. The mansion is swallowed by silence.
Outside the window, our heroes are holding their breath, the calm before the storm.
And then the silence is shattered. But not by a smashing basin this time. 3 heavily armed men silently breach the perimeter and arrive at the eastern pavilion.
But these aren't street-level scammers like Shen Xinsheng. The text explicitly identifies them as Jiangyang bandits.
Jiangyang translates to rivers and oceans, right?
Yes. It is a specific classification in the vernacular of the Jianghu. Chen Xinsheng was a puddle. These men are the deep water.
They belong to widespread, highly organized criminal syndicates that often operated along the massive waterways of China, like the Grand Canal or the Yangtze River.
They are hardened, professional killers and pirates.
And their motivation for breaching this specific pavilion is terrifying. The narrator notes that they have come to pluck flowers.
Which is a deeply poetic and therefore deeply chilling historical euphemism for sexual assault and abduction.
It's the classic horror movie setup. The victims are asleep, the monsters are at the window, but the twist is our vigilante bodyguards are already hiding inside the house.
It is a masterful feat of narrative engineering. Look at the emotional journey the author has taken the reader on over the course of a single night.
During the first watch, we experience a gritty, street-level grift, followed by Chen Liang, acting as a ruthless, terrifying aggressor.
He burns a man's bed and weaponizes a corpse. He is presented as a monster of the dark.
During the second watch, the pacing slows to a crawl, bathing us in sensual, intricate details of extreme wealth, imported luxuries, and fragile beauty. The tension is completely relaxed.
And then in the third watch, the narrative violently snaps into a high-stakes home invasion.
But because we witnessed Chen Liang's terrifying competence in the first act, our fear for the women is immediately counterbalanced by anticipation.
That is exactly it. The monster of the first act becomes the savior of the third act.
If Chen Liang had just politely asked Qian for the money back, we wouldn't believe he had the capacity to handle 3 hardened river pirates.
But because we saw him execute a flawless psychological dismantling of a thief and a grieving family, we know exactly how dangerous he is in the dark.
We aren't just hoping the heroes survive. We are actively waiting for Chen Liang to unleash that exact same terror on the bandits.
And right at that moment of peak anticipation, as the bandits prepare to breach the window, the chapter simply ends.
The author drops the curtain with a classic, serialized sign-off. If you don't know how the 2 righteous heroes capture the lustful thieves, listen to the next chapter's explanation.
It is the brutal, brilliant hook of serialized literature. It stems directly from the tradition of oral storytelling in tea houses, where the storyteller would stop at the most agonizing cliffhanger and pass the hat for tips before continuing.
In print, it ensures you buy the next volume.
And it works.
I am entirely invested.